The environmental impacts of landfills. The Truth Behind Landfill Series, Module 3. The wild, weird, and way too close for comfort world of landfills and what they're doing to our planet. Note, this issue is massive, so the module covers the general information. We have secondary modules diving deeper into many of the specific issues for a fuller picture. Let's start with groundwater contamination. What it is and how it happens. Garbage tea. Leachate stinky spread. Rainwater plus trash equals toxic leachate mix. Landfill liners crack, age, and fail, and therefore leaks start to happen. Poison seeps deep into the groundwater and contaminates miles and miles away from the source. Did you know the U.S. alone generates enough landfill leachate each year to fill more than 20,000 Olympic swimming pools? Landfill as methane factories. Methane is trash's silent superpower. Organic waste breaks down without oxygen, creating methane gas, a potent greenhouse gas 25 times more powerful than CO2 over 100 years and 80 times more powerful in 20 years. And in Canada, landfill methane emissions contribute about 7% of the total methane emissions, enough to power approximately 1 million homes annually. When organic waste, like food scraps, paper, and yard trimming, break down without oxygen, it's more potent than CO2 at trapping heat in the atmosphere. Landfills are one of the largest human-made sources of methane in the world, and the process doesn't stop after a few years. Trash can keep burping methane for decades after the landfill is closed. Did you know that methane from U.S. landfills each year could power more than 12 million homes? From trash to climate. Methane accelerates global warming faster than CO2 in the short term, trapping heat in the atmosphere. Landfill gas capture systems reduce emissions but recover only about 60 to 75% of the methane produced. Canada's landfill emitted approximately 5.7 million tons of CO2 equivalent methane in 2022, roughly equal to the emissions of 1.2 million passenger vehicles. Methane is a climate fast track. It accelerates global warming in the short term, while CO2 does the slow burn. Landfill gas capture systems are designed to trap and use that methane for energy, but even the best systems can only capture a portion of it. The rest leaks into the atmosphere, invisibly adding to climate change. That's why reducing what goes in a landfill, especially food waste, is just as important as trying to catch the gas once it's there. There's a case study for Puente Hills Landfill in California, once the largest in the United States. It generated enough methane to run a power plant supplying electricity to thousands of homes, but it still leaks significant emissions despite this advanced gas capture system. Soil degradation and biodiversity impact. Beneath every landfill, the very ground is changing, and entire ecosystems are paying the price. The dirt on soil. Landfills leave their mark. Landfills compact the soil beneath, reducing oxygen and water flow needed for healthy plant growth. Chemical leaks alter soil pH and natural balance, often harming soil microbes. Soil degradation around landfills leads to reduced agricultural productivity and long-term ecosystem stress. Landfills don't just take up space, they change the very ground they sit on. Layers of waste and cover material alter the soil chemistry, often making it more acidic or salty. Compaction from the massive waste of trash squeezes out air pockets soil needs to breathe, and it also makes it harder for the water to move more naturally through the ground. That means plants struggle to grow, roots can't spread, and the soil loses much of its natural resilience. Did you know a fully compacted landfill can weigh over 1,500 pounds per cubic yard? That's like parking a small car on every square yard of land. When nature moves out, the great ecosystem eviction. Loss of native plants due to poor soil health disrupts local food chains and wildlife habitats. Heat islands created by landfills can increase local temperature by up to 10 degrees Fahrenheit, pushing sensitive species away. Polluted soil and water reduce biodiversity and can prevent natural regeneration for decades. When soil health declines, it's not just about fewer flowers, it's about the collapse of entire ecosystems. Landfills can wipe out native plant species, which means local wildlife loses food and shelter. Birds that used to nest there disappear, insects vanish, even underground life like earthworms, microbes, and fungi can be drastically reduced. And once an ecosystem is gone, it's incredibly hard to rebuild it the same way. Did you know landfills can create heat islands? These are areas up to 10 degrees warmer than their surrounding land, driving away even more species. Not just plants, but animals and anything else that thrives on a certain ecosystem. Nature's victims, the landfill knockout. We have a standalone module dedicated to this topic called Creatures of the Dump, so we won't go too deep into it here, but here's a summary. Landfills destroy habitats, forcing wildlife into smaller, fragmented zones, leading to loss of biodiversity and local extinctions. Toxic runoff and soil contamination cause mutations and health issues in animals and deformities and reproductive failures. And scavengers and invasive species thrive in dumps, disrupting natural food chains and pushing native species towards collapse. Did you know that some landfill chemicals cause deformities in amphibians and fish, threatening entire local populations? It's a silent biological crisis beneath our feet. Imagine a world where the beautiful diversity of life is reduced to a few dump-adapted species like rats and seagulls, because landfills have knocked out everything else. It's not just ugly, it's a biological crisis happening quietly beneath our noses. Effects on nearby communities. For some communities, living near a landfill isn't a choice. It's a daily battle against pollution, stigma, and lost opportunities. Who lives near landfills? The burden falls unevenly. Site decisions often lead towards marginalized groups due to political, economic, and historical inequalities. Landfills are more likely to be built near marginalized or low-income communities. Why? Because those areas often face less political resistance, lower land costs, and weaker environmental protections. It's called environmental injustice or environmental racism. When certain groups bear more than their fair share of environmental burdens simply because of where they live or who they are. Did you know in Canada, Indigenous communities and low-income neighborhoods face disproportionate exposure to landfill pollution and waste facilities? And studies show that in the United States, people of color are 3 times more likely to live within a mile of a landfill or hazardous waste site. For a more thorough look, we have more modules specifically aimed at these issues. Beyond the nuisance, this is more than just a smell. Landfill neighbors face increased health risks, including respiratory issues and higher cancer rates. Property values near landfills can drop by 18%, impacting wealth and community stability, and social stigma and reduced common community opportunities add psychological burden to residents. Living near a landfill isn't just about the smell, it's about daily exposure to potential air and water pollutants, constant truck traffic, and the stress that comes with knowing your neighborhood is seen as a dumping ground. Property values drop, making it harder to sell or move, and kids grow up with fewer green spaces and more health risks. And the social stigma, you live next to that place factor, can follow a community for generations. Did you know homes near large landfills can lose up to 18% of their property value even if the landfill is well managed? The hidden landfill footprint in our daily lives. Contaminated water sources near some landfills force entire communities to rely on bottled or filtered water, sometimes for decades. Soil degradation and pollution can lead farmers to washing or discarding produce more heavily, increasing food and water waste and cost. Methane emissions contribute significantly to local air pollution, worsening smog and respiratory issues, especially in urban areas downwind of large dumps. Did you know in Canada, certain communities have relied on bottled water for over 20 years due to landfill contamination of groundwater sources? You might not see the landfill every day, but its impact sneaks into your grocery basket, the air you breathe, and the water you drink. That fresh apple or clean tap water often carries silent signature of our landfill habits. For example, in some Indigenous and rural communities in Canada, landfill leachate contamination has led to long-term boil water advisories. Urban areas like Vancouver and Toronto face growing landfill methane challenges, contributing to smog days, even when factories or cars aren't the primary culprit. And farmers in regions near old landfill sites sometimes report cross losses and soil toxicity, which impacts local food security and costs. The world we're building, one choice at a time. Did you know that if every Canadian reduced their landfill waste by just 1/2 a kilo or 1 pound per week, we'd keep over 771,000 tons or 1.7 billion pounds of trash out of a landfill annually. That's like removing the weight of over 7,500 blue whales every year. If every American reduced their landfill waste by just 1/2 a kilo or 1 pound per week, we could keep over 7.26 million tons or 16 billion pounds of trash out of landfills every year. That's like 35,500 Statues of Liberty. If every North American reduced their landfill waste by just 1/2 a kilo or 1 pound per week, that would prevent over 13.6 million tons or 30 billion pounds of trash from hitting landfills each year. That's enough to fill more than 1,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools. We've just taken a hard look at the ripple effect of landfills, from the soil beneath our feet to the communities that live in their shadow. This is the world that we live in today, but it doesn't have to be the one that we pass on tomorrow. Solving the landfill problem isn't about one heroic act. It's about millions of tiny shifts, rethinking what we buy, reusing what we can, and speaking up when better systems are possible. We may not be able to undo the harm, but we can refuse to add to it. And that, multiplied by all of us, is how change happens.